Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another installment of Flyer Gonna Flyera. We got a good one for you this week, as per norm. The trade deadline has come and passed, and quite a few moves have happened. We're going to be going over those all three of them in total. Danny Briere was pretty active, especially on trade deadline day. He didn't really do anything leading up to it, but the day of, the fireworks went off. We're going to be going over the three trades that happened. Our confidence level in Danny, if it's gone up, down, stayed the same. Talking about potentially how this leads into the offseason. There were games actually played this week that we didn't really enjoy, so we'll go over those for a moment or two as well, and maybe give a recap of next week's games as well. But anyway, sit back, relax, get ready. Our trade deadline ending special, Flyer Gonna Flyer, coming at you next. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Flyer Gonna Flyer. I know I sound like a broken record at this point. I am one of your gracious co-hosts, Alex Fournette, and joining with me, as always, is one of my awesome, gracious co-hosts, to the man to my right, Mr. Eric Martino. Eric, how you doing today, brother?
Not too bad there, Alex. Was a busy week with all leading up to trade deadline, and now just excited to talk post deadline and effects and everything.
You ever find yourself on like social media or whatnot these days leading up, just hitting the refresh button every time you see a tidbit of news? Like, oh crap, what's going on here? What's going on here? Do we actually got some news? I got to see what the return is for this trade, or I got to see. There's rumors now about so and so being moved, and your thumb just keeps going up and down on social media, just looking for that potential update. I gotta say, I think I'm kind of glad that I'm going to get a little break for doing that after about a week and a half of that.
Oh yeah, it's exhausting. It's exhausting, man. You're on your phone, you're on your computer, you're trying to look at different things at the same time, looking at certain sites, reading rumors, refreshing Twitter, see what happened. Like, but it's fun. I love it. Like, it's my favorite time of year.
It's like the fireworks of the season where every team has something to look forward to, even if they're completely out of the playoffs, or even if you're locked in and you're just waiting for that time to get here to see who you're going to potentially add, or in our case, who we're going to sell to potentially right the ship for the future. But yeah, quick tidbit outside of Flyerland for a second. What was a trade that probably shocked you the most, just in general?
Oh, I guess maybe Rantanen going to Dallas, because I really thought that I really thought that Carolina was gonna go all in. Like, they traded for Rantanen. I thought they were gonna keep him and try and make another trade and really just say, you know what, we're going all in this year. We think we could do it.
Yeah.
So I was caught a little bit. I shouldn't have been caught by surprise, because there was a lot of rumors out there saying that they were gonna retrade him. So I think, look, they got a decent return.
Yeah,
I was shocked.
Sure.
All in all, I think, like, they ended up doing well. I have to say, Carolina, like, long term, like, did well. It's just that short term right now, I feel like they pretty much took themselves out of Stanley Cup contention.
Oh, for sure.
Look, as good as a player as I think Stankoven is and could be, he's not ready now. And
I don't know if he's going to have the ceiling of Rantanen either.
No, that's it. Like, even Nietzsche's, I don't know, but like, look, they ended up getting 2 first-round picks and 2 third-round picks, and they could take that and turn it into other players later. Mm-hmm. I don't know, and look, they got some decent prospects coming up, and that's why I think pretty much Carolina took themselves out of the playoff race. For the Cup, out of it now, because you look at what Tampa did, what Florida did, what Toronto did, and then on the West, Colorado and Dallas. Like, I think personally, I think he looked at all this and said, you know what, it's just not our year.
Mm-hmm.
Let's recoup what we can and shoot for next year and see what happens.
For me, there's 2 trades that really shocked me. The first one, when we were on our live stream on the Puck Around podcast group, with Marchand going to Florida.
I was going to say that one.
That was jaw-dropping. There was talk about wanting him to move out west and the whole 9 yards there, and maybe the Kings or Vegas with that cryptic high tweet that actually turned into nothing. They just ended up being a big troll. Rick, I got to give you credit. You're right on that.
I told you.
So most of the time when teams do stuff like that, there's usually a story behind it. But this time it wasn't. It wasn't a cryptic tweet this time. But I will say I thought if he was going to move, it'd be somewhere out west. Never in a million years. I think they moved him to probably the Bruins, one of the top 3 biggest rivals in Florida, the team that has completely owned them the last 2 years. So it's like complete. It was shocking, and just to hear the fallout between Sweeney and Marchand and how far they were on the money. The whole
Did you hear the money? They offered him $3 million a year. $3 million. That's an insult.
That's a slap in the face. They thought he was going to go the Bergeron route. That's what it was. He thought he was going to go the Bergeron route. And they could lowball. That's a slap in the face.
They're cheap.
The Bruins are $6 million easy in open
market. The Bruins are traditionally and for a lot cheap, and it shows right there that they would do that, lowball their captain like that.
Yeah, that was a slap in the face. But there was that one, and the other one that really caught my eye as well is the fact that Lou Lamoriello actually closed and absolutely fleeced the team. I could not believe the return he got for Brock Nelson. I did not expect that at all. I thought Lou was going to be taking his yearly 24-hour nap on trade deadline day, and no, he hit a grand slam on that trade. In my opinion, that was arguably the fleece of the deadline. Like, don't get me wrong, Brock Nelson is a good second-line center, but you got arguably Colorado's best prospect, one of them, if not their best. You added a first-round pick, and who else did they get? They added
they got Oliver Shillington and a conditional third.
Okay, they got the third, and they got Shillington. So they got a damn good haul.
And they flipped Shillington, didn't they, to Anaheim?
Yeah, for future considerations.
But whole point is, that is a good haul. Realistic, you got a great prospect, a first-round pick, and a third. So, Lou, you saved your job for 6 months.
And Brock Nelson's like ancient, isn't he?
He's 34. I mean, he can still play. He's still a second-line center. But
that's a lot to give up for a 34-year-old.
He's probably the equivalent of what Brandon Tanev was last year in that trade deadline, I think is a good way to look at it. But not to go too off topic, let's go into our team right now, the Philadelphia Flyers. We're going to do a very quick recap of this week's games, and then we're going to go right into trade talk. 3 games, they all sucked. 4-1 loss, and 6-3 loss to Calgary, 4-1 loss to Winnipeg, and then 4-1 loss to Seattle, 0-3 week. This puts the final nail in the coffin of any delusional playoff hopes they have. Eric, give me a quick breakdown of these 3 games and what you thought, because they're all pretty similar in terms of showing up.
Well, I think you hit it on the head there, Alex, man. They just sucked. They just really sucked this week. I don't know if it was a lot of the trade deadline chatter and that was affecting them with Lawton like being involved in rumors, if that was throwing them off their game or what. But no, like they played terrible against Calgary. Good for Morgan Frost, ended up with 2 assists on that game. So kind of like maybe a little sticking it to John Tortorella. And there was at one point where actually I don't know if you remember, but like when Frost, when he pulls that like stick between his legs and then tries to shoot it up there, top corner, he pulled that move off. I know he's done a couple times as a Flyer, but like, it was like if that goes in. But no, look, they didn't play well that game. Neither look, Winnipeg's is a fucking machine. They're a good team. They probably want revenge for the loss the week before. And look, Seattle. They came out.
There's no excuse for that
weird because they came out playing really well, and then they just like, fuck it, pack our bags, and that's it.
That's the type of game that Torts is going to be screaming at people for. Like,
100%.
That's 100%. One we close the door. No one's coming in. I'm ripping you all a new a-hole, especially for that second period. Yeah. You know what the feels like the tone of this week was? They got bodied in one period in each of these games. The Calgary game was the first period. They came out absolutely flat. They only were down 4-2, but Calgary put up 3 goals in the span of 2 minutes, and that was it. The Flyers got 2 back to make it 3-2, but that's as close as they got. Calgary kind of broke it open from there. Flyers never got any closer than 2 after that. It was just a game those 3 goals in the 2-minute span just set the tone for the game. That was all you need to know from there. Winnipeg, they were just outplayed top to bottom in this game. But if I had to say that second period, it really got away. I watched this game, and this is a game. I'm sorry, not the. That was that they ended up playing. Was that the game Urson got pulled in 2 games, 2 goals and like 4 shots? Was it that one, or was it the Calgary game?
I think wasn't that Calgary?
That was Calgary. I'm sorry. So they went back to Urson, and he really didn't have it that game either. And he's a big reason for this. They played him all 3 games this week. All 3 games he struggled, and it just shows Urson when he's on, he's on. He's off, he's off. And I don't put all the blame in him because he didn't really have a lot of good defensive coverage in front of him all week. But he is not confident right now. He struggled. I feel like you could have went to Fedotov in one of these games to really just give him a little bit of a reset. And you throw you throw him to the Hounds, and when he's not confident, it shows. He lets in softies that he usually should save. He gets nervous in net. And all 3 games it really showed, especially I think that Calgary game was telling. Seattle didn't play all that good either, especially in that second period. Mind you, that was, in my opinion, the second period of that Seattle game was one of their worst periods all season. They were bodied that period, completely bodied. And it took 18 minutes to finally allow the tie to be broken. They got outscored 3-0 that period. But practically the majority of the period was in their own end. After where you mentioned they came out on that first period, they played pretty well. I thought they outplayed Seattle pretty hefty in that first period. Mm-hmm. The second period, the wheels came off. The third period, they kind of just packed it in. And Torts ain't going to be happy. And we'll be talking more about Torts on future shows because I have a hunch that he's going to end up moving into the front office after this year. This is just a gut feeling. And they're going to end up trying to move on to whoever the next guy for this team is. I think there's going to be a bit of an overhaul for this team just in general, especially on the bench. But that'll be a little bit in future later episodes. But I think the team is starting not to respond to the way Torts is trying to get his message across. And this week kind of really showed it. But yeah, anything else you want to add, Eric, before we get to the main event of this?
No, just the only thing I want to say is I'd like to look, like you said, Urs is very up and down. He after the Christmas break, the kid was on fire, and now look, he's starting to struggle again. I want to see more of Fedotov. That's my thing. I just look. At the same time, we're supposed to be evaluating him just as much as we're evaluating Urson. And they sent Kolosov down to the minors this week also. So fucking great.
Yeah,
that's where he's gonna develop. That's where he should be. So I just want to see Torts play Fedotov a little bit more because look, like I've said before on the show, and you said it too. Like the guy, to me, he has proven Fedotov that he could be a backup in this league.
I agree.
There's no reason to play Urson into the ground. Like we got to stop with these. Like he plays one game and then he doesn't play for another 3 weeks. Like,
no. I agree. I've stated that too. It should be a 60-40 split. It should be a 60-40 split right now. If you feel like Urson is more reliable, that's fine. But he should not be getting 50-55 games like a bona fide number 1 starter. Urson's just not that. At least bare minimum on at this stage, mainly because of the lack of consistency that he gets. Fedotov, like I said, ever since those first 4 games of the year, I think he's been serviceable. He has not been bad. Has he had bad games here and there? Sure. But as a cosmic whole, he has not been bad. That's all I'll say to that.
And also, just one last quick with Fedotov, look, we know what the team is going to do for the rest of the year now. They have a depleted roster, and for me, watching Fedotov play is fun. Like I love watching the guy play because you don't know what's gonna happen.
He is very unorthodox in net. It's never pretty when he makes a save, but he makes the save.
Exactly. So at least if I could watch Fedotov play for the rest of the season, like I want to be entertained, you know. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm Team Fedotov. Like I want to see this guy play.
Well, he's starting today, which is good. So we'll see how he looks against New Jersey, and hopefully the team responds a little bit better. But anyway, let's move on to the trades. So trade deadline is coming past, as we mentioned. Danny Briere had made one trade up to this point with the Morgan Frost, Joel Farabee blockbuster with Calgary. And we were talking prior to last week's show, what will it look like when the dust settles? Last week's episode was Lawton's Last Supper. Well, Scotty Lawton was a casualty of the trade deadline. I shouldn't say casualty. That's probably not the best word to use. But he was one of the individuals that was indeed moved. Flyers made 3 trades this trade deadline involving Eric Johnson, Andrei Kuzmenko, which kind of shocked me a little bit. I did not expect him to be moved, and Scott Lawton. Rasmus Ristolainen, despite all rumors, did end up sticking around, which I get. Plenty of term, don't really have a replacement. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Could you have gotten a haul for him? Yeah. But I understand you can potentially get a haul for him next year too.
Yeah.
So I'm like 50-50. I understand the argument's sake of not moving, of wanting to move Risto because how much of a seller's market it was. But I also understand not wanting to move him because you're not getting the price that you want. Maybe another year of durability can prove your point of getting the price that you want. You might get a decent market next year, and it's 1 year less of term that team's going to worry about if they acquire him and say, oh, okay, maybe we'll take Risto now that he only has 1 more year after this year, and we can feel more comfortable. It gives the Flyers another year to find a contingency plan behind him. But anyway, let's move on. Start with the smallest of 3, the Eric Johnson trade. This one kind of dropped right at about 3 o'clock. This one, Danny Briere came out at his press conference and said he did this more as a favor for EJ. This one wasn't really about garnering the best returns. We're not going to spend too much time on this one. So they traded. The official trade is the Flyers moved Eric Johnson to it was the Colorado Avalanche. He's back home to his old team, where he all started, where he won his first cup. Great to see, in my opinion. Let him chase the cup one last time just to see where this lands. So happy for him. And the return was Giovanni Smith, who was playing for the Sharks early in the year, tried fighting Mitch Kopp early in the year, ended up throwing hands with Eric Johnson earlier in the year. Yeah. Talk about coming full circle. So I don't know too much about Giovanni Smith. I know he's more of a fourth line guy who kind of has like the Nick Delorier role, drops the gloves, protects his teammates, tries to agitate the opposition. I don't think there's too much to really go in depth with this. I feel like this is just a guy that they're going to have to potentially replace Nick Delorier if they potentially move on for him and get him to waive his no trade. That's a guy that you could potentially see getting moved this offseason. He's only got 1 more year, I think, left to term. I know he's got the no trade clause, which, Chuck, what are you doing still? But well, we could see potentially be on the move this offseason if he agrees to waive. And that could be a replacement for him. So, Eric, what do you think of the EJ trade? Do you think there's maybe more to it? Do you think this is just maybe a little bit of a thank you for what you've done? Here's your gift, parting gift. Go chase that cup one last time. Is there maybe a little more to this trade?
Look, I like this trade only because like it's rebuilding the Flyers' reputation. That's what this trade is to me.
Good
like
point.
They did Eric Johnson a favor. They showed him respect, and they showed him, like when was the last time Eric Johnson even got into a game at this point? Like it's been a while. And look, great guy. Like I loved watching those those video clips of him just fucking around on the ice and like doing stupidity during interviews, and like he seemed like a great guy in the room, but at the end of the day, like, look, they did this guy a solid by sending him back to Colorado, where like he was previously playing, where like I said, we previously won a cup. He was there for a few years, so I'm sure he still has a home there and everything. And again, this is rebuilding the Flyers' reputation because players are going to see this. Players aren't stupid; they're going to see this, and then you'll be like, "Oh man, look at the solid that they did this guy." So like, I feel like future free agents or whatever are going to be, or even players that maybe the Flyers want to trade for, that a player might have to waive his no trade to go to Philly. They'll see this and like these little things, and it's like, you know what? Like I know I'll be protected there. I know like they'll show me respect, and if ever something. So I like that trade for that. Look, they did the guy solid. Like he would have been great for the rest of the season in the room. Like, especially with we lost Lawton. So by trading Eric Johnson, you're trading away another guy that was great in the room. But Briere thought, you know what? I'd rather be more respectful and do this guy a favor than he thinks the room is fine without him. And I'm telling you, this is gonna fly very well throughout the league.
Yeah. That's a very good point. I didn't even really think about that, but it is about building the reputation of the team. And just because there was so many issues with this room before John Tortorella got here, which is one of the things I will thank Torts for, because he has really solidified this team's hockey culture and environment and make this room a lot more of a likable spot. Between what him and Danny and Jonesy have done in weeding out some of the bad eggs, like, no disrespect to some of these guys, but the guys that didn't really fit in the locker room, like Kevin Hayes or Ivan Provorov or guys like that, and just trying to make the environment healthier. And, it just shows the ripple effects of how this is going further down the line. Doing a solid to a guy like Eric Johnson, as you just mentioned, is going to be seen. Like, he is a 37, I think he's 37, 38 at this stage.
I think so.
He 37, 38-year-old, number 7 defenseman. He's not going to be playing much, if at all. And, for a spot like Colorado that he has so much familiarity with, he's won a cup there. He's comfortable there. It puts him back in a spot where he's adored by fans. I didn't even know his nickname was the Condor, by the way. I looked at Colorado's Twitter page, and I guess they called him a Condor. And I just saw the emoji of the bird. I was like, is there like an underlying story I don't know about this? So small stuff like that just kind of shows how much of an impact a guy like Eric Johnson's had to Colorado, because he was a former number 1 overall pick in 2006. He's been in the league forever. So, doing a guy like him a solid, and, he had nothing but good things to say leaving here, how much he adored and loved it here, how he will always have Philadelphia as a special part of his heart. And, stuff like that, as you mentioned, it does not get unrecognized. It's stuff like that sends a message throughout the league. And we're going to be talking about this a little more in the Kuzmenko trade, I think. But it shows that people are going to be looking at this, as you just mentioned. I think you hit the hammer on the nail. I got to reiterate a lot of this, that players can come here and feel like that they're valued. Players can come here that Danny's going to have their best interest in them. And all 3 of these guys, I feel like Danny had the best interest for.
Mm-hmm.
All in for different reasons. Whether it would have been EJ in this case, who has moved just to get the opportunity to push for a cup, whether it was Kuzmenko, who has moved to get the opportunity to play for a contender, which may have been the reason he moved his no trade clause to originally come here. Because as me and you mentioned, that maybe off screen, that maybe Danny wanted to do him right to get him to a contender. Or Lawton, who showed continuously how much he wanted to be here, how much he loved being here, how much he enjoyed his time in Philly, both on and off the ice, being a leader in that locker room. I mean, think about it. We'll get into this a little more when we talk about Lawton, but when Torts first got here, there was only one player who got a letter. That was Scott Lawton. That day he slept on his chest. That tells you all you need to know right there. But, yeah, it shows, it helps revive the name of the Philadelphia Flyers, and hopefully down the line makes this a lot more of a destination. And small steps like that are the stepping stones to building that. Anything you want to add, Eric, before we move on to Kuzmenko?
No, that's it.
Andrei Kuzmenko. So this one kind of caught me by surprise. So he was moved to the Los Angeles Kings just for a conditional. I think was it a conditional or just a regular 2027 third-round pick?
No, I think it was.
I can't remember if it was conditional or not. But Kuzmenko found his way very quickly. Danny stated that trade manifested to Los Angeles. I think that one broke right around noon, and it came together pretty quick. And I got to say, that one really surprised me a little bit. I thought this would be a guy that did re-sign. He seemed like he was playing well here. I think in 7 games, he had 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. And in his entire tenure in Calgary this year, I think he only had 13? Wasn't much. Something like that. He was really struggling. No, that may have been Peltier I was thinking of. I think he had a little bit more than that. But point being, he wasn't really playing that many games. He was getting healthy scratched out in Calgary. Comes here, has a chance to get a brand new start, and suddenly it looks like he's finding his game a little bit. He gave that power play a little bit of a jolt. He's not fast, but he has a lot of good offensive awareness to this game. So I was quite surprised when this move manifested. So with that being said, what do you guys think about this? And everyone, by the way, our other gracious co-host is here, Mr. Jamey Bascow. Perfect.
Hey, aloha, mahalo. Aloha. Hopefully everyone's well. It's warm. Starting to warm up. The weather's breaking here, and time for some good old pond hockey.
Beautiful, beautiful. It has been so damn windy here, and it looks like it's finally died down. So just to give you a little bit of a recap, Jamey, we went over last week's games. We just talked about the AJ trade. We're now on the Kuzmenko trade. Jamey, since you're just joining us, let me start with you. Jamey, what's your opinion on this trade? Were you shocked it happened? Are you happy about the return? Give me a whole 9 yards on this.
Oh, yeah, I'm absolutely astounded by the return. To be honest with you, it overexceeded my expectations. I really thought if the Flyers were going to trade Andrei Kuzmenko, which I'm going to be honest, I did not think they would, it would be a 5th round or higher. So to get a 3rd round pick, really isn't, really was a great deal for Philadelphia. It was good asset management by Danny Briere. What I found intriguing was Danny Briere admitted he wasn't looking to trade Kuzmenko. In his annual trade presser following the trade deadline, he admitted that he wasn't looking to trade him, and he was actually shocked that a team came calling for him. And when LA came and they offered, he was like, "Sure, yeah, go ahead." But what it does, it doesn't close the door on him resigning in Philadelphia, because he put a nice shout out on Instagram saying that this was long story short, was a good portion of his life. In Philadelphia. It was short, but it appeared that he liked Philadelphia, so it doesn't close the door. And Danny Briere was in his annual trade presser, pre-trade presser. He said that they were looking to add Kuzmenko in free agency, possibly anyway. So he might still be on the Flyers' radar. Either way, it's good asset management. The winging, like you said. He was good. I would have liked to have seen him with Matvei Michkov more. I think that with the wheels he has, he was a little faster with Philadelphia than he was with Calgary for whatever reason. I guess he got a little jolt, after the trade. I mean, he had 5 points. What was it? 2 goals, 3 assists in 7 games, which was pretty good. And he really helped on the power play. You saw they were more efficient, cycling the puck better. Now, if Rocky Thompson could get his head out of his ass, it'd be a little better. I think the power play. I just think that they need the right power play coach. Nonetheless, it's here nor there. But yeah, I was pretty shocked by the Kuzmenko deal, but it was very good on Danny Briere's part, and it really shows Philadelphia, hey, this really is a rebuild. Because Flyers fans needed honesty, and they're getting it. Danny Briere said all players are on the table, obviously with the exception for like Matvei Michkov. It would take, an arm and a leg to obtain him. But it just proves that anyone is on the table if the right deal comes, to fruition.
Yeah. You make an interesting point, too, when it came to this whole trade scenario. I was very shocked to see how quickly it manifested. And, you mentioned that he could return in the offseason. It would not be the first time that's happened. Remember the Justin Braun trade when they traded him to New York?
Yeah.
I think they got the same exact return. It was a 3rd-round pick, and he found his way back here in the offseason. So it's not unheard of here. It definitely could happen. But the whole thing about it, just how quickly it happened, was the really thing that shocked me. What about you, Eric? What do you think of this trade? What do you think of the return, just in general?
Well, I thought the return was decent. Like Jamey said, I didn't think that they were going to get offered much for him. I think because of the slow start that he had in Calgary. But look, he was playing very well with us since he got here. It was 5 points in 7 games, and he looked really good on the power play. So I'm assuming LA, maybe LA and maybe couple other teams saw that and were like, you know what, maybe if we could get this guy for a mid-round pick, he could actually help us in the playoffs. So yeah, no, look, I like the deal. Like that Danny sent him to a competitor, so not competitors, but contender to the cup. So yeah, no, look, good trade, good, decent value. And look, if the Flyers are open to re-signing him in the offseason, I'm sure he, like you said, he enjoyed his time here, so they could easily fit him back in, depending on how much money he wants, also. So, and we'll see. I enjoyed his time here, so we'll see what happens.
He seemed like a very likable guy in the locker room too. He was very open. He was very energetic. He brought a little bit of life to the party. He just seems like the type of dude that everyone could seem like they can get along with. He was definitely a character. I'll say that. He was definitely an interesting character. But I liked it. He kind of, he reminded me a little bit of, maybe not quite as much to this level, but he kind of gave off a little bit of Ilya Bryzgalov vibes. But not quite.
Yeah.
But he was someone that really found a way to, even in a short time he was here, to liven up the locker room a little bit. He just seemed like a dude that was very easily to get along with. But yeah, and maybe there is a possibility of him returning, as you guys mentioned. Danny said this was someone that they had their eye on potentially in free agency. The team has a little north of $27 million to work with now for the offseason. So and who knows what other moves they might make as well. But at this moment, they only have, I think, 3 RFAs to sign: York, Cates, and Peltier, I want to say. I don't know if I'm missing it. Oh, and Forster. I'm sorry, 4. So when that's all said and done, this team should have at least 12, 13 million. So who knows what they do? There should be a little bit of money to work around with here. But anything else you guys want to talk about before we move on to the main event trade?
Not good.
All right. So this is the big one. This one happened, I think it was close to 1:00. This shoe dropped. Last week, Scott Laughts dropped his cryptic message. The Last Supper type of meal on Twitter, where him and a few of the players and a bunch of the staff and whatnot, they were out to a big dinner. I think it was out in Winnipeg last Friday. Drops the dinner post. He felt like this was feeling a little more real. And, there was a lot more smoke compared to last year. We talked about it. We felt like it was going to happen. We just didn't know if, where, or when. And then with 2 hours before the gong goes off, the shoe drops. Scott Laughts goes to the team that I think a lot of us expected him to go to the Toronto Maple Leafs. No love, Laughts. We love you, man. Incredible Flyer, even more incredible person. Love the dude for everything he's done here. Listen, we know he wasn't a superstar or anything of that caliber, but the leadership that he brought, the longevity he was here for, the fantastic human being he was off the ice. I will never have a bad thing to say about Scott Laughts. I hope this guy succeeds. Just wish it wasn't Toronto, because it's always fun to poke fun at that team. But at least I'll have a positive reason to say if they do make a run, I'll be like, well, at least Laughts is getting a good push this year. But let's go over the trade. So I think the Flyers made up very well here. Eric, I'm going to start with you, but let me just go over the trade. Philadelphia Flyers received in the Scott Laughts package a 2027 first-round pick. That is indeed top 10 protected from the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Nikita Gabrenkin, who is a 2022 fifth-round pick, who a lot of Leafs beat writers point out as a top 5 prospect in their pool, maybe even top 3. He seems like a guy who really moved up the rankings. Going into this trade deadline, I haven't looked if he's played since. I doubt he has. But he had 31 points in 58 games for the Toronto Marlies out in the AHL. He's only 21 years old, young kid, big physical winger. I think he's a little over 200 pounds. And he's another character. Back check, forward check, paycheck. I thought that was awesome. The little clip that you found of this dude. Missing his 2 front teeth. He kind of reminds me of a young Sean Couturier in 2012 in that Penguins series, missing his 2 front teeth. But anyway, going to Toronto is Scott Laughts, where the Philadelphia Flyers retain 50% of the contract for both this and next year. It's only $1.5 million cap hit, so not too bad. It does use their final retention slot. They used both of them on Kuzmenko and Laughts. Kuzmenko won't come off the books this year, so one will open up at the end of next year. And they also sent over a 2025 4th-round pick and a 2027 6th-round pick. So, Eric, let me start with you. Big picture of this trade. What do you think of everything? Gain, loss? Did they do great? Did they do good enough? Was it underwhelming? What do you think?
I think this is a really good trade with the potential to be a great trade. That's what I think about this. Look, Lawton, look, I love Laughts, man. He was, like you said, great guy in the room, great guy in general, just beautiful person. Everything he's done for the community and the city of Philadelphia and everything. And it's really sad to lose a guy like that. But at the end of the day, this is what it is right now in Philadelphia, and it's a rebuild. And look, a guy like Noah Cates has really developed into like the next Scott Lawton, and in a way, like he's took his place basically.
Yeah.
And at this point, like we're loaded with bottom 6 players. Like he's basically Lawton became expendable, and he just became like a luxury to have right now on our team.
Yeah.
You know. So, and look, guys like that, guys like Lawton, who are like these Swiss Army knife players, where he could play center, he could play wing, he could play in your bottom 6, he could play your top 6 in a pinch. Like, these guys have value. And look, just basically look what he did on the penalty kill last year with all those shorthanded points. And so yeah, so look, Toronto paid up, and good on Danny, man. Like Danny held firm. He's like, I don't have to trade this guy unless I get the price I want. And that's exactly what you have to do in a rebuild, because like people on Twitter just like talking about, oh, just get rid of these guys, just get whatever you can for them, get like a second. Like, no, like that's not how you do a proper rebuild. Like you have to hold on to these guys until you get the price you want. And yeah, look, I really like everything I hear about this Gabrankin kid. And like, look, at one point I was listening to, like, earlier in the season, I was listening to some the Steve Dangle pod, and when he was up with when he was up with the Toronto, and they love this guy, they couldn't stop talking about this kid. And that's why when I heard that he's the one that we got in the trade, I'm like, oh, I was excited. Like, and he brings something that the Flyers really lack. We lack size on the wing, and that's what he's gonna bring. He brings that physicality, he brings that size. Everything I hear, like he's someone, look, the kid is like 6'2", 200 pounds, and one of the guys I was listening to after this trade was saying like he plays bigger than his size, and the kid's already 6'2", 200.
Yeah,
like,
that's impressive if he does.
So like, no, look, I love it, and we got a 1st-round pick in 2027. So like, Briere's spraying those picks around now. And look, if ever Briere decides to make an offer sheet in the offseason, at least he's got, like, so if we have to give up, let's say, a 27 pick in an offer sheet like our own, at least we'll have another one to pick if ever. So no, I like I said, I think this trade is a win, and I think it could be a steal. So we'll see. Time will tell.
I definitely do agree. I think this has the potential to be something really good. I loved it when it happened. I lean back a tiny bit. I still think it is a very good trade with the potential to be a potential fleecing. I do, but I'll put it right now as like an A-. I think Danny did fantastic on the return. You got, listen, you got another 1st-round pick, mind you, top 10 protected. We don't know what Toronto's going to be in 2 years, especially with both Tavares and Marner potentially sniffing free agency this year. They might be taking a bit of a step back over the next year or two, but I still think you can get good value out of this 1st-round pick. And something tells me there is the chance Toronto might regret giving up this pick later down the line. Who knows? We'll see. Yeah, you did retain Lawton half his cap, but you still take another $1.5 million off the books, which is good. It gives you a little bit more money to work with. I would have preferred them to move the whole contract, but, it is what it is. I still think you got a good return. And this Gabrankin kid, as you mentioned, very physical style player, good on the body, plays big. It gives them some really needed size. The Flyers, as we've hammered home, is the 2nd smallest team in the NHL. Might be even the smallest after this trade deadline, because Colorado did have Brock Nelson. He's not tiny. So The Flyers needed to add some size. I think they will add a little bit more in free agency and in the offseason. But having a kid like this, it makes you wonder, how did this kid drop to the 5th round? Like, he was, for what he's been doing in the Toronto system, the way he played out overseas in Russia. And this is another thing to mention. Gabrinkin and Matvei Michkov, I guess, are buddies. They know each other. Just another plus into this trade. You give a guy who can be a bit of a translator for Matvei, in the placement of losing Kuzmenko, you add Gabrinkin, who is more around his age. Matvei's 20, this kid's 21. So I think maybe in the long-term structure of this, it fits the bill a lot better, having a kid who can help Matvei teach a little more English too as well, who might know the English language better, as well as filling a need at the same time. Kid plays physical, looks like he's on pace for 40-somewhat points over in the AHL this year. It looks like he's going right to Lehigh Valley, which is great. Hopefully he can help the Phantoms with their playoff push. So I look at that. Maybe this kid even sniffs the NHL roster next year. He's going to be 22. It's not like he's going to be out of the age range. He played 7 games already. And from what I heard from Toronto fans, even though he didn't put up a point, he didn't seem like he was out of place that much. So this could be a kid that could potentially push for a bottom 6 roster spot next year. Who knows? This team's going to look a lot different in the offseason. I think we can all agree with that. But they are shaping something up. And as Eric, you mentioned, they added a first rounder in 2027. They have the picks spread out a little bit. If they do make a move for an offer sheet, they got a contingency plan in 2027. They've got 3 firsts this year. They got 4 seconds this year. They got 2 firsts in 27. They got 2 thirds in 27. They've got a lot of ammunition. There's going to be some moves. This is just a way to add more ammunition. You get a good prospect. I think this kid slots right into the top 5 of your own prospect pool right now, so that's good. So, and listen, as I've said, Lott has been an absolute warrior for this team. He's been here since 2012. He's played close to 700 games here. I think it's like 660-something, if I remember correctly. He's been someone that can be, as you mentioned, a Swiss Army knife who can move around the lineup almost at will. Sarge, thank you for everything here. No love lots. Wish you the best in Toronto. Do what you can to try to win a cup. Although, it being in Toronto.
No, not in Toronto.
I kind of want the memes to continue, so I'm kind of conflicted here. Maybe they can move him somewhere in the offseason. No, but in all seriousness, I hope Lawton continues to have a very successful career wherever he ends up, whether it stays in Toronto or elsewhere. Jamey, what do you think?
Well, I had a feeling Loss would be moved straight from the get, and that was because of Monday. I was at practice on Monday, and in the locker room, there were only about 4 guys, and typically, or 5 guys. To my right was Travis Konechny, then Nick Seeler. Coots was all the way in the back, and then he had to the left. It was Ivan Fedotov and Samuel Orson, and that was it. I've never seen the guys go in and out. This was the first time. I've been covering this team in the locker room for about 10 years now, and I've never seen them in and out so quick after practice and us to be pushed out. We're necessarily pushed out, but there weren't many guys to talk to. Oh, and I forgot, he had Jakub Peltier on near Samuel Orson about 5 or 6 stalls down. So I knew then, okay, something was up. I knew that, yes, it's trade deadline week, but I've been there on trade deadline week before. I interviewed Wayne Simmons a few days before he was traded. The locker room never goes like that. So something was happening that no one knew. That's what I believe. I've never seen the guys go in and out. All the guys. Now, holding Matvei Michkov off, holding Kuzmenko off, understandable because those guys, even though Kuzmenko understands better English, they wanted to focus on, getting him adapted to the team. They wanted, obviously, Matvei, isn't available at many practices, but they want him to get adapted to the team as well. So I knew then, okay, this is real because I had all intentions of going in, talking and getting one last interview with Scott Laughton and telling him thank you, and it didn't happen. But I did come out with a nice interview with TK. He gave a little bit of tidbits about his house fire and stuff like that. But I knew then that this was real, that Scott Laughton possibly, more than likely, was out of here. If it wasn't going to be then it was going to be, I thought, by Wednesday or Thursday, and it didn't manifest until really things didn't start to get going until Friday. And I think that's because I don't know what St. Louis wanted for Braden Shen. I think that was Toronto's top target was Braden Shen, and they wanted to hold off. And seeing that they couldn't make a deal happen with St. Louis, they went to their next best, which was Scott Lawton, who, like you both said, is a warrior. The guy is a trooper. He's a soldier. I remember all the way back to 2011-12, no one gave this guy, a shot at all. I remember this very, very vividly, that people were like, oh, he'll never make it in the NHL. People were shocked that Ron Hextall protected him in the expansion draft. And when he got protected in the expansion draft, that drew heads. And then Pierre Bellemare got selected, and people were upset by that. They should have kept Bellemare, should have let Scott Lawton go. And look, Scott Lawton's here in 2025, making a name for himself and getting a Nikita Grimbekin, who I think, forget the first round pick, I'm more inclined with him. I couldn't believe that he was part of the return. It is unreal. And I'm kind of shocked, and I'm scratching my head, like, why? He's six, like you both said, he's 6'2", 209. He has size on the wing with the Flyers team. But immediately what I thought was net front presence. Now, if Rocky Thompson somehow has something on the Flyers organization, like nude pictures or something like that, and he comes back next year, I hate to say it like that, but like if he comes back next year and he doesn't use Grebeckin, as a net front presence, which I think the Flyers sorely lack, getting, JVR is no longer here to be that guy. They really lack that on the power play. Whether JVR is tipping goals or not, his presence in the crease really created like the misuse of players here. If you don't have Grebeckin down the middle, right there, just say camp out in front of the goalie. Something is wrong, because he likes taking a beating. It's not that he's the most physical guy, but he knows when to be physical. He's very physical along the boards. He knows it. He's a good board battler, and he can provide an effort. He's hard to move. He's really hard to move. And at only 21 years old, I see why Danny Briere thinks of him as the future. And that's what Danny Briere said in his presser. He said Grebeckin is part of the Flyers' future. And why? This has become a melting pot for Russians. Philadelphia is a melting pot for Russian hockey. You're looking. They don't care about Andrei Kuzmenko. Hey, bring him. He's friends with Michkov. Let's bring all Michkov's friends down. Hey, Grebeckin. Hey, did you play with him? All right, you're on it. They really don't care about whether they play in the KHL, whether they're coming over. Some organizations are. Some organizations are timid, afraid of drafting Russian players. Whereas, Danny Briere and the Philadelphia Flyers are not. They're like, hey, the more the merrier. Because it helps with the language barrier. It helps getting Matvei Michkov, adapted to North America better, whether it's Fedotov, whether it's Zamula, whether it's here, whether it's there. Like Kuzmenko said when he was traded here, he was like, man, the Russians, it's cool. There's like 4 or 5 really good Russian players here. And he's right. That's the neat thing about Philly. It's that they are very attractive for the Russian side. Yeah. And Nikita Grebeckin, I guarantee he's like, oh, this is cool. You got Kolosov over there and with the Phantoms. Now Kolosov can become more adapted too, because Grebeckin is down there. And I think that's huge, because Kolosov is still learning the language. He's not all there, but he enjoyed his time in Lehigh. It's to my understanding, Kolosov really enjoyed his time, in Lehigh up until he came, back with the Flyers and stuff like that. But now he got sent back. So now you have Nikita Grebeckin, who could help Kolosov even. This is good development for him. So maybe that sways, Kolosov to stay here next year. The reason I say that, I don't like to give up on goaltenders, the way that other people do. So this is another great piece for Danny Briere to get Kolosov adapted. And I bet you that resonated in his head as well. This is a smart general manager. This wasn't just for Michkov because he played with Michkov, but he could aid Kolosov. Kolosov needed a Russian in the AHL, and now he got him. And, now there's no more excuses for Kolosov. He has Grebeckin down there, to lean on as well. Both of them could hang out, go, do whatever, as a pair if they want, join with the team. I know Louis Belpedio is very, very united with getting the team together, for dinners and stuff. Louis is a very good vocal leader for the Phantoms. and he likes to get the team together and stuff like that, for occasions. And now Kolosov has, what could be his friend, in Nikita Grabekin. So that was part of it too. I think that should be said. To get a first round pick, that's what the Flyers wanted ultimately from Toronto. But to get a player, a prospect like Grabekin, who I think is better than Minten, hands down. I think he's going to evolve into being a better player than Minten. I think, they finally have that net front presence. Now, that's why I envision him up with Philadelphia next year. And I wonder if that's what, honestly, with knowing what Danny Briere wanted from Toronto, I wonder if that made Kuzmenko expendable, because they're both, on the – he could both be on the left side. So, okay, we'll trade Kuzmenko, maybe circle back and sign him in free agency, but we got Grabekin, who could take his place next year on the wing and become a net front presence. I really believe that if they don't use him on PP1 or PP2 as a net front presence, I really believe they're misusing him. It's finally – huh?
No, I was going to say, you make a fantastic point about that. Can you finish your thought, and then I'll add on to it. Sorry.
Yeah, that was my first thought, because I knew a little bit about him, but not all. So I went to his size, and I'm like, okay, he's Russian, great for Kolosov. B, size. And that's why I have him. I really have him making the Flyers roster next year, the big club. I really do. I think it's his coming out party. Like Alex and both Eric alluded to, he's not seasoned in the NHL, but he has NHL experience. He has 7 or 8 games under his belt, with Toronto. So that if Torts is here next year as a coach, which I think he will be, I think then the following year he'll head up into the front office there. I think he'll finish his last year of coaching out. That's big for Torts. He wants to see NHL experience. That's why he keeps drawing Ale Lixel in. That's why he keeps going to, now he's got Rodrigo Abels, who, seems to be the guy here. Lixel's always been that guy. Like he's, piggybacking back and forth between Lehigh and the big club for the past few years. Now he has Grabekin, who, could go back and forth now. So I think he makes the club outright next year. I really do.
Honestly, I think you made some excellent points. The net front presence points is a fantastic one to add on to as well. Like maybe you have your next Wayne Simmons JVR type there. He should be slotted right in front of the net. Now, Rocky Thompson, I do not trust to be able to use him. I don't want him here next year in general. He should not have his fingerprints anywhere near this power play. He doesn't even know how to friggin' distinct which friggin' circle Matvei Michkov and Travis Konechny should be on. That shit drives me nuts. Why do we have Matvei on his opposite side circle and Konechny on his opposite side circle? He can't even do that right. If he can't do that right, I would expect him to be able to use Grabekin in the correct spot. So I agree with you that I think he should make the club too next year. Maybe as a third line winger who can add some size down the middle onto this checking line. We talk about maybe adding some size just in general, maybe adding him in like a guy like Trent Frederick in the offseason. Suddenly you got 2 good bodies to bully around on these 2 power plays to put in front of the net, and that could give this power play a little bit of bolster. They haven't had a net front presence guy, as you alluded to, since JVR. So he's 22 years old. He's got a chance to season a little bit more in the AHL for the rest of this year. Get a full offseason with the program to try to tone his game a little bit. He'll be 22 next year. I don't think that's an unreasonable age to bring him up anyway. I feel like you got something in this kid. I absolutely agree with you, Jamey. I still don't know how he dropped to the 5th round. I think they got something with this kid. I think I got bait that they're going to use this kid correctly. Just don't make it Rocky Thompson, please. Anyone but him. Get a new power play coach. 4 years is enough. But at the end of the day, this team, I like where things are going. I'm comfortable, I'm confident. And I think where they're at right now, I think this time next year, we'll be seeing a much improved team.
Yeah.
But with that being said, anything else we want to add on the lot and trade before we move on to our final subject?
Well, the quick is about Grabekin also, like, we could have got Fraser Minton, but what I like is what Danny Briere said in his conference is they identified Grabankin, and he's the one that we wanted. Because look, Fraser Minton, yeah, sure, but like he's like bottom six center. We have those in abundance. And then or I was scared it was gonna be like Nick Robinson, like another small winger. Like we have those in abundance. So just like good on Danny, man. Identified a big, strong winger, and that's what we got. Fucking good on Danny, man.
I agree. Finally got some needed size. But with that being said, let's do one last subject here. A little quick tidbit on confidence level right now in Danny Briere and where we think this is going to lead to the offseason. So this team clearly is gathering assets. They're gathering cap space. They're definitely going to be doing something in the offseason. It sounds like a lot of the big name beat reporters have come out and said that they're going to go quote unquote big game hunting. They got now north of $27 million to work with, assuming there's no overage penalties or anything like that. I don't think there will be this year. So with that being said, Jamey, let me start with you. What would you give Danny a grade for this deadline, and what's your confidence level in the offseason?
I would give him an A+. And the reason I do is because I really thought the only move that they would make would be trading Scott Lawton to whomever. Actually, I didn't have him pegged for Toronto. I was one of those that I thought that he would go to Washington, or Ottawa for that matter. And I really, because of the way Ottawa has been pushing lately, I really thought that he would go to the GM and say, hey, make a push because this is we have a real shot. If you think about it, they're a buzzsaw right now. They're a wagon. That Ottawa team. They won 3-2 in overtime last night against the Rangers. What's that 4-3? They're just making that push. They just seem like a really strong team that isn't relinquishing that at least second wild card spot there. But nonetheless, I would give him an A+. I didn't have Kuzmenko getting traded, and here that just manifested, and I didn't see Eric Johnson going to Colorado either. Even though the return is Giovanni Smith, that's fine. I really didn't have him, going to. I didn't have him being traded at all. At the least, I thought, okay, maybe a team would come calling for Zamula. It didn't happen, but although I didn't think that the Flyers wanted to trade one of their defensemen anyway, so I never had Risto being traded. So I'd give him an A+. And where I see things going is I do see some big fish, some big game, hunting here. I don't believe that they're going to move into the, second, third, fourth slot, fifth slot, if that comes, depending on where the Flyers fall. They're not going to move up like that. It's very, very rare that a team does. And every year we talk about it and it never transpires. I don't think that that's going to be what the Flyers do. I do believe that, they have a lot of assets to move via trade if need be. A lot of, whom they want to trade in the offseason for that big fish that could possibly be. I see a massive roster shakeup here in the offseason. I really do. I don't think that this is going to be near the team, that returns next season. I'll say that much. I just don't get the sense of that. I see them taking the next step in the rebuild, and Danny alluded to that. He said the team will dictate when to take the next step. I think that they're stuck in the mud right now, like where they're at. So I think that they have to take that next step to try to, the next step would be playoffs. And that's why I say I don't see many of these. I don't see this being the same roster as we did last year. Last year was the same roster. They kept everyone. That's not going to happen again. There's going to be lots of changes, this offseason. So look forward to that. I see them going down the RFA route. It's funny. I talked about that a day before the trade deadline with Urif. And Urif and I were talking. He was like, "No, I don't." He's like, "That's going to cost a lot." And I was like, "Yeah, I know." But then you look at the next day, Wyatt Johnson being re-signed. And why do you think Why do you think Dallas was hurried up, to ink him? They knew that there was a team or two that would come a calling and throw, like Eric was saying last week or the week before? He was like, hey, just throw $17 million at them and see what happens, for like 3 years, and then you'll be able to get them because you'll pin them. That's exactly what I was saying. So I was thinking 14 to 17 million per. And you look, and I don't think Dallas would have been able to match that. And they knew that. They knew that there would be that team or two, and I think Philadelphia was one of them. I really, if they weren't going to be able to trade for Johnston, if they weren't going to be willing, I could see them, throwing an offer sheet at him. So is that possible now for Mason McTavish, for a Marco Rossi, or something of that nature? We'll have to see. Dave Velarde, we'll have to see. That's going to be an interesting route. And I wouldn't throw it by this regime. If they can't make a deal, I think they're going to do everything in their power to obtain a 1C at the very least, or at the very least a 2C. If that doesn't come to fruition, I can honestly see the RFA route going. I really do. But I think that, they'll see. They'll make a move or two before or at the draft. I think that's really going to be inclining there. But I don't think that they'll move up from where they are pegged.
Well said, Jamey. I think you hit some good points there, especially at the RFA route, because I have to agree with that as well. I think they're going to likely go down that avenue. I give Danny an A-. I think he did excellent. You almost maximized the asset in Scott Lawton. I would have liked to maybe see one more guy go, but that's fine. I think he did a fantastic job just in general. You got something for Kuzmenko instead of letting him walk out the door. The Eric Johnson trade, you did good service on him. As Eric mentioned at the beginning of the show, he brought up the fact that it puts the Flyers in good graces to potentially free agents around the league, just doing a kind of act like that, doing goodwill for this kid. Well, I shouldn't call him kid. He's 37, 38 at this stage. But doing good service for an aging veteran that's won a cup back in Colorado. And then obviously the return for Lott you got. And, they've got a hell of a lot of assets. They got a lot of cap space. They're going to be doing something big this year. And I think they're going to have a good 1C or something close to it. I do think Luchenko is going to make the roster next year to some degree. I don't know if he'll be slotted right in the 2C, the 3C, how they're going to use him. But I think he'll find his way here one way or another as well. So I do believe this team is in good shape. I give Danny an A-, and I am relatively confident for the future. How about you, Eric?
I give Danny an A. I think he did everything that he possibly could have done. Like we said, look, he sent Eric Johnson back to Colorado, doing the guy a huge solid. Kuzmenko got something for him. So, and look, he sent Scott Lawton to Toronto. I'm sure Toronto was the one place that Scott Lawton really wanted to be. So
his dad's driving distance now, he said too, which is cool.
Yeah, exactly. And if I'm not mistaken, right, his wife's father passed away, and they also live in the Toronto area, so it puts her closer to her family. So no, look, Danny did solids for all his guys, man. And look, he made the team weaker. At the end of the day, look, he made this team weaker this year. And so now, they could fall down the standings, and it just helps us better. We'll get a better draft pick. We have capital. So if ever, let's say we end up with 4 or 5 or 6, maybe with those extra couple picks that we have, we could maybe jump to 3 or 4, in case if there's somebody we really identify. He basically left it's wide open for whatever Danny wants to do now. He has assets if he needs to use the assets. He opened up cap space if he wants to add in free agency. Added extra picks if he wants to offer sheet somebody. So I think this was just a great trade deadline by Danny. I've always had confidence in Danny. Until you show me that you're incapable, I'll always I'm gonna ride. I'll ride with you, and we'll see. And one thing I really love about Danny, and I think a lot of fans don't appreciate it, the guy has not lied to us. He's open about everything. With Chuck Fletcher was, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, but then he does something else, and then we're trying to do this, but we're doing something else. It's like Danny comes out and tells you, look, I'm not training these guys unless I get my pack, and he keeps you informed that he doesn't lie. And I love that about him. And
that's a good trade. Yep,
good, really good. I'm really super confident in Danny right now, and really excited to see what happens in the offseason.
I think there's going to be some fireworks. It's going to be interesting. I think Danny shut up a lot of the haters, man. I think he's definitely looking in a position where he's looked at as one of the, at the bare minimum, middle of the pack, maybe even top half of the GMs in the league in this series. I think he's going to, and like I said, I look back to that Frost and Farabee trade. I think he did a great job there too, opening up the cap space. You know, Farabee has picked it up a little bit in Calgary the last couple games, but I mean, you opened up $5 million of cap from that move alone. You have one less RFA to sign. I think this team's set for the future. I think this is going to look completely different. Any closing thoughts before we wrap things up, though, gentlemen?
No.
No, I'm good.
All right. So with that being said, gentlemen, that was an awesome episode. Everyone that follows us, give us a like, comment, subscribe to the Don't Puck With Media website. As you guys know, we are here every single week for the rest of the season. We'll be talking more about the Flyers later down the line as well with some off-season stuff once that time comes. But this is an awesome week. This is an awesome lead up to said trade deadline. Eric, Jamey, as always, thank you guys for coming on for such an awesome episode. We look forward to having you guys next week. We only got a little over a month left in the season, so let's finish strong, gentlemen. Hope the Flyers can give us something to be excited for in the future. Currently, I believe they hold the 7th pick. Maybe they can drop to 5. They get to 5, they're getting one of the 5 guys I really like no matter what. So with that being said, thank you all for tuning in to another awesome episode of Flyer Again a Flyer. We will see you all next week. And one final shout out to Scott Lawton. Thank you for everything you did here in Philadelphia. Wish you the best in Toronto. Do what you can to go chase that cup, even if it does piss Rick off. But with that being said, thank you all for tuning in. Have a great week, everyone. Stay safe. And as always, let's go Flyers.